There's a Jewish law, which I repeat all the time, and I always repeat it for this reason. There's a Jewish law that says the charity begins at home. The Jewish law mandates the first person to be charitous to is the person closest to yourself, which is your spouse. The second person to be charitous to is the second closest to yourself. And from my perspective, in my opinion, this is your children, this is your offspring. The third person you must be charitous to is the third person closest to yourself, which are your parents. And then from there it goes to siblings, and then you understand it radiates outward. But this is counterintuitive, you know. So many people think you want to give charity, find a stranger. Send money overseas. Find people who are living in the most difficult conditions and help them, which is a very good idea, by the way. But Torah teaches us, it's a law. It's a biblical passage which explained in the Talmud and makes its way into Jewish law. Charity starts with your spouse. Most people bite on their finger when they hear that. My spouse, she's happy I'm married to her, right? What else does she want? My wife's not here, but we love each other very much. Don't worry about it. We're good. We're good. So far, so far, so far. No, Baruch Hashem. Thank God. There's a reason why. There's a reason why charity begins at home. I'll tell you what the reason is. Because it's not hard to give charity to strangers. It's not hard to give charity to strangers. There's no strings attached. You read about a poor person live 5,000 miles away, 10,000 miles away, you write a check, a small check, a medium check, a big check, you send off the money, you feel like $1 million. No part of you feels exploited until you find out how much of that money goes for bureaucratic, what do they call it? Operational costs, yeah. 75% operational costs, 10% overhead, and 15% maybe will deliver to the people who are actually in need. When you give to people close to you, it's complicated because there's a relationship. And the relationship is long-standing, and some days it's decades old. And that complicated relationship is all about fairness. You know, one of the great diseases of ungrown up adults. It has to be fair. If I give you $1, you got to give me $1 back. Or if I give you something in this way, and we do this with our spouses. We're negotiating. We have to navigate, we have to figure out. And the Torah says that's a fundamental mistake. It's a basic error. We're good not because someone's going to be good to us. We're good because it's the right thing to do. It's just right to be good. And when we're good to people with whom we have long-standing relationships, our spouse, our children, our parents, our siblings. And in many cases, our relationships are complicated. You know, there's a history. You know, what so-and-so did to me yesterday, last week, last month, 50 years ago. You think I forgot? I haven't forgotten anything. Yeah. Every insult you ever gave me, I remember, huh? So how can I be nice to you? In 1947, you insulted me, and now it's 2023. I forgot how many years that is. But I'm still breakers, you know, I'm entitled. How foolish and how silly. Successful people, and I'm not talking about money and notoriety and all the other nonsense. They're not nonsense, but they are nonsense. I'm talking about successful people who are tapped into the secret of life. It's so unimportant.
Yes.
It's not a scorecard that you have to keep it balanced. When you get married, you choose to love that person not because they're going to love you back. You choose to love that person because you love that person. That person chooses to love you. And you'd like to believe that that person is choosing to love you not because you love them, but because they love you, period. How much do you give? As much as you could. What are the conditions? Ideally, there are no conditions. It gets complicated. I'm not going to say it doesn't. It gets complicated. You don't want to get hurt. But this is what a person is. A person is good, and a person gives. And we give because it makes us better. We give because it makes us better. If we're able to get past our cheshbonos, that's a Hebrew word, which means our tab, our list of grievances against the people closest to ourselves, for heaven's sakes, we're happier and we're better. My wife gave me an article years ago about a man who was he was a journalist, a very successful man. He traveled a lot for work. And he and his wife had been married for I don't know how many years. And they fell into a pattern which many couples fall into. And this, by the way, this exists, parents and children, husbands and wives, parents and children, siblings for sure. Where they got married, and they got married. Why do people in America get married? Because they fell in love. No one's sure what that means, but they fell in love. And over the course of their marriage, they developed a certain status quo, a certain nature of their relationship, which included regular insults. He had complaints to her, and she would put him down, and then he would put her down. This was the good morning, I love you. You know, you're a baby. When are you going to grow up? You treat me like I'm a little child. You think you're my mother, whatever. These are the classic grievances. But they fell into this pattern of mutually inclusive insults. So many couples allow that to happen. I teach kids, I teach teenagers, I teach young men and women who are going to get married soon. And I describe to them the first time their spouse insults them, or the first time their spouse doesn't take responsibility and is lazy. You say, oh, I love this person so much, I'll let them get away with that insult. Yeah. You just gave them permission. You just gave them permission to insult you for the next 50 years. And if you wake up 10, 20 years down the road and say, I'm sick and tired of being insulted, the real answer to that question is, so why didn't you stop me when I did it the first time, 25 years ago? And the answer is, because I loved you. I didn't want to hurt your feelings. Well, these are the kinds of things that we all figure out after being married forever. If we had only known them before we got married, we would know how to be married. That's the way marriage works, like everything else. Real things you learn on the job. Can't learn them in school. But this couple, this man and his wife, loved each other, but they would constantly berate one another. And he describes being away from home in some hotel on some kind of a trip and just thinking about his marriage. And he asked himself a simple question. Do I love my wife? Do I want to remain married to this woman? And he concluded beyond the shadow of a doubt that he loved her and he wanted his marriage to work. But he thought about the fact that all they did was put each other down. It just became their norm. He describes being in the shower in a hotel and just crying about the fact that the person in the world he loved the most, he couldn't get along with. It was a series of bad habits. You know, it's a trigger and a counter trigger. It's, you know, there's a dance. Life has a dance. And all of us play a part. In our relationships, patterns are established over time. And some of those patterns are bad patterns where we almost feel like there's no way out of it. This is just the way it is. You put me down this way, so I put you down that way, and this is just the nature of our love. Anyway, he decided he's breaking the pattern. He's breaking the pattern. He loves his wife, he wants his marriage to work, he's just not getting, but he came to a conclusion, which really would be nice if we all came to the same conclusion. His conclusion was, I cannot change my wife, I can only change me. The bad habits that she has, the fact that I've allowed her to put me down for these 25 years, that's her business. If she's gonna fix it, that's on her. But I don't gotta play the same game. I don't have to dance the same dance, I can stop. And he comes home from this trip, and he says to his wife, I love you very much. Please tell me something that I could do for you. And she gives him a torrent of insults and curses and says, what are you up to now? What do you want from me now? Why are you doing this? No, this is on the this is on the level. I love you and I want to do, and she refuses to believe him. So she insults him some more. He says, no, I really mean it. Try me out. She says, listen, we've lived in this house for 20 years. Our garage has been a mess for 19 of them. Clean the garage. And he hated cleaning the garage. This was one of their regular arguments. So he spends 3 days and he cleans the garage. He puts everything in its place. He throws things in the garbage. He organizes it. He even gets the grease off the concrete. And he comes to his wife and says, I did it. And she goes into the garage, and something that she's wished for almost the entire duration of the marriage is done, and she cannot believe it. And he says to her, I love you still. Tell me what else I can do for you. So she really gets upset because she's thinking that something is going to come. You know, after 1, 2, or 3 of these favors, she's going to pay. She's going to have a debt. So she screams at him and says, listen, I need you to be honest with me. What are you exploiting me for? What do you want in return? I want nothing. I just want you to know I love you. Anyway, he does another thing and another thing. And after a few weeks, she discovers that he actually means it. And she breaks down and she says to her husband, I cannot imagine why you want to live with me. I'm such a miserable person. And he saved his marriage. He saved his marriage not by changing her, because that you cannot do. He saved his marriage because he changed him. And this is a secret of life. We can all be good, not just to strangers, to our spouse, to our children, to our parents, to our siblings, to our employees, to our employers. We can. It's very hard. It's hard. It's a lot easier to be nice to strangers. If we embrace life, this is secret number 4 of life, that what really matters is not how much money I make and how much power I have and how much influence I have and how big a voice I have, but how much I am able to bring myself closer to this mythical idea which is found in the Bible, in the image of God, that a human being should be a little bit more divine. That's what this means. That's what it means. It's not esoteric. It's not Kabbalistic. It's very simple. It's a secret of life. The greatest thing we can do for ourselves is improve ourselves. But it's difficult. It's much easier to fix the other person or the whole world or save whatever it is that we want to save. Looking in the mirror is difficult, but it's the 4th secret of life according to my list today.